think a lot of us are already thinking about, you're working in photography and in the computer graphics, so you're learning how to do a lot of the stuff in Adobe Illustrator and how all of those things work. We've skipped ahead in these chapters the way that this class is organized, so you've seen in other classes or other chapters, in 5 and 6 per se, about how infographics can be so useful in communicating a message in design. This one goes into all of that a little bit more in detail. So the objectives that we have, and I think I got like 3 pages of objectives when I looked at this presentation. I was like, that's a lot of objectives for one chapter, but they're all, I think, kind of similar and say the same thing. This is to explain the differences between symbols, logos, representational and informational imagery, and ways that they function in design and communication. So it's just, that's kind of a weird fancy way of saying, we're going to take a look at what's the difference between a symbol, a logo, a photo, an image. All of those things I think we've touched upon already, but we'll go a little bit more in depth to here. And then we'll explain the differences between photographs and illustrations, and explain the way that icons and symbols differ from other types of imagery and how they communicate visual information. And then discuss how logos are designed and how they identify brands in the marketplace. Which is kind of funny that we're going through this at this point in the class, because we've all just done our logos. But we're going to learn even more about that. That was just how we touched upon it for our own personal logos. When you're doing logo design or even brand design, it's a kind of a little bit different process. I mean, you're still going to go through the same steps, but when it's for yourself and you get to do whatever you want, and you're not limited to anything, that can be more fun than when someone limits you on what you can and can't do. We'll explain or examine ways in which we identify finding systems are developed, and developing a knowledge of the basic types of charts and graphs that we can use to display statistical information. So the first type of imagery is representational imagery. And I think from this image here, you can kind of see this sets a mood. It communicates very strongly and emotionally. This one is probably the easiest one to identify, I think, or one of the easiest ones to identify because it's just so striking. Photography. Most of you are taking photography. You can see how photography can really set a tone, can make things feel good, happy. You can use this for advertising. I know in my own field of at the chamber, I'm always trying to get these happy, family-friendly photos on the beach. Symbolizing how family fun, and that we use that for advertising. We use it for editorial, not so much annual reports. I think I use a standard beach scene, but still it's a photograph. And photographs are really viewed very trustworthy, although as we go forward, you're going to see some examples, some really funny ones of how people have really used Photoshop in an awesome way to make things look like they're actually there when they're not. So it can be a little less trustworthy now than it used to be. So photography here, the realism of photography helps the reader identify with a situation or setting, as well as clearly identifying a product. So make sure you write this down. I'm sure this is going to be on a test at some point, this statement. So either screen capture that or write it down. There's different places you can get photography, stock agencies. I think it's funny on this page they don't talk about you take it yourself, but I think it's so easy to take your own photos and get exactly what it is you want. And I think it looks better. I was working on a concept for the AHA cans for Coke, and partnering with Coke on a visitor partnership thing for Visit Myrtle Beach. And it would have, I feel like the perspective would have been easier to just go get a whole bunch of cans and put them in the sand and make them look natural, because you're actually setting that can look better than all of the photoshopping in the world that you can do to perspective and make that can look like it's actually in the sand. Although I think it came out fairly good. It just it's a lot harder sometimes. When you're trying too hard to make something work, it means it's not working. It means you need to scrap it and try something else. That's one of those things. So cropping in on a focus or part of the image is some strategy you can use with photography, and then outlining or silhouetting, isolating a subject from the background. Sometimes I think I did this with the oyster roast. It was going to have some music, so I cut out a guitar. I guess you guys cut out a guitar in chapter 5's computer graphics illustrator thing. So something similar to that. I think they used a photo of a guitar, and you had to turn that into vector art, right? Isn't that what that was like? Yeah, thought so. So, and then you can also use digitally altered, or use a photo and digitally alter it. One of the great things about computer graphics is second half semester long project. I know you've all hated the image vectorization. Everybody seems to. The second half of the semester is is images sound, and everybody loves that. You pick a song, and then you get to go into Photoshop and basically put a montage or collage together in Photoshop of what you're feeling about that song. It's pretty cool. I enjoyed it last semester. I'm sure you guys will enjoy that much more than you will have the vectorization. But that's what this here is talking about: digitally altering photographs, which I think we all know that you can do in Photoshop beautifully. So here we go. Here is the image that Professor Morose was talking about. I thought this is great. So you've got a car, and the realism, it really does look like you could be in a flooded street, and a shark there. Their shark is put there pretty cleverly. And what does that say? What is this communicating to you? Someone go.
Panic.
Yeah. Panic. Oh my gosh, there are sharks in the street. So yeah, visually it has a big impact. I think we would all agree on that. Now, this next one, oh my gosh, I love this. This one is photoshopped so horribly, and it's just so much fun to look at and have everybody pick apart. So here we go with the next one.
That looks like it could be considered a meme.
Yeah, well, the memes before they they had memes, but yeah. So his angle is a little awkward. The car on the street's a little awkward. The background doesn't quite. I don't
It
know what
looks
we're
like he's
trying to
trying to
say.
stand on it.
His shoes are too matchy with his shirt. I don't know. There wasn't anything that I liked about this. Photoshop. There's no shadows. Things are they cut the top of his head off, so he's got a flat top on the head. So just being really careful when you see something like this. I mean, everybody laughed last semester, and it was we went on about this for maybe 10 minutes about how awful and why somebody would have done this. But it's a great example of a horribly photoshopped image.
And with the way he's sitting, the better thing to do would have been put him in the car.
Yeah, so anything I think would have been.
It also, if you look at the front of it, it also shows that there's a name is backward on the plate.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean, that's one of the things that's wrong, but there's so many things wrong with this.
He doesn't even match the background either.
Yeah, I mean, there's no shadow, there's no depth. He's just literally cut out and plopped on this car, and the car is plopped in this, I don't know, Italian field somewhere in Italy. I don't know. That's what it looks like to me.
I have no idea.
But here's another, the image does speak very powerfully. Just make sure that when you are digitally altering an image, that it looks more smooth and not so rough. Like this guy is clearly, it looks like you took some scissors and you cut him out and stuck him there. With all of Photoshop's tools, you can really go in and feather the edges to make him not look quite so harsh. So, but anyways, this is my fun slide of the day. And then digital manipulation. This example, I think, was it from a Minnesota zoo? I thought
Yeah.
this was really cool. I kept going back and forth. Is that a donkey or a horse?
That's a zebra.
A zebra that they put um, the tiger stripes. I just wasn't sure which base
Yeah,
animal I was looking at.
I remember seeing this. People used to call this a libra.
That's awesome. But this one is done very well.
Yes, it is.
You know, it's very, very cohesive. You're going to be doing something like this in computer graphics as well. It's another fun thing with a bull's horn on a lion. That's really cool. But it's so clean. It looks like this animal could possibly live in existence. So when you are doing digital manipulation, try and make sure you always step back and look at it and say, "Is this look like this could be real?" And then make sure you have a point to this. So the Minnesota Zoo did this to cause a reaction, to say, "Oh, there's something not right about this," and really pull you in. So I thought that was a clever way to use that technique. And I love this one. So the tiny, tiny words, I think when you look at this, you're like, what happened to his teeth? That brings you in first. And then you read the tiny print, official restaurant of the NHL, and you realize those are golden arches. That's a McDonald's, and that's hockey. So they have missing teeth because they're a little more violent of the sports than others.
Oh, no,
So,
there's one more violent.
well, I mean, of the sports with a puck or
Yeah.
a ball. Anyway, so I thought this was pretty genius the way that this is obviously an older ad. The golden arches are a little uh, sharp, I think, in this, but overall a great execution of both meaning and image. Illustrations. So I think everybody probably knows a little bit the difference between what an illustration and a photo is. An illustration is something that you're going to do in Illustrator. It's going to be something that's hand drawn. Something like Paige seems to, I think she's quite a good illustrator. I've seen several other of you also, Kaylee. Um, Illustrations seem to come easy to you guys, and the thoughts on illustrations, you can tell that that's a medium that you like to work in and that you will do well in. They also express a quality, enhance a mood or feeling in a different way from a photo, but can be just as effective. And they help audiences visualize something that can't be seen or better understand a complex concept. So, like for instance, a map or infographics or statistics. So a lot of statistics are hard to understand. It's great to have charts and graphs to further understand that at a glance instead of having to read the data and understand it. Here's an example of an illustration, although it has almost a photo-like quality to it. It's an illustration. I think the exaggerated perspective yields a more surreal than real anyway. But I think when you look at that, you could be like, down low with a photo, with your camera and taking a photo of something similar to that. But that's an example of an illustration that looks like a photo. And illustrations, you can use storyboarding for video presentations and movies and TV ads and animations. Especially, I like to animate titles into my wedding videos. And I use an illustration. Ella, your logo is a lot like some of the animated circles that I use with the with the with the leaves, and then I usually put the couple's names in the center. I use a lot of those types of illustrations that have words, not just images in them. And that gives visual form and concepts for people in an easier way to understand. Sometimes you can't communicate everything you want to communicate with a photo, and illustrations definitely fill that gap. There's several sources for imagery that you can pull from. I subscribe to Shutterstock, which often helps me. I never use anything 100%. off of Shutterstock for the most part. I'm always, pulling some small element or some element that I like, and then expanding on it and putting my own spin to it. I always like to say that using a resource like that is no different than an interior designer that goes to Home Depot and buys tiles and the wood floor and all the different pieces and can put it together. That's how some of these sources and imagery for me are. If you don't have time to create all the things yourself, just like a interior designer isn't going to be making the tiles herself or himself, that's going to be a a great resource for you to have, especially if you need to go quicker. And a lot of stuff you can go on Creative Market, Shutterstock, um, different websites, and you can purchase things fairly inexpensively as a jumping off point. It's nothing that I would ever use 100% unless it was a photo of Myrtle Beach or something that I could use in that regard. So there's royalty for collections. I just named a few stock agencies. You can also commission people to do things. And then fonts and clip art. There's so much fonts out there. You just have to kind of put in Google what your inspiration is and put font in there too, and you'll have pages and pages of things to look at. We have the Typekit within Adobe that helps with narrowing some of those things down, and then there's also your Google fonts and all of those things. But there's so many different resources to get inspiration for imagery.